Get my coffee cup instead. Hello, everyone. We will now call to order the Governmental Operations Standing Committee. Madam Clerk, if you could please read the Chamber Emergency Evacuation Plan announcement and public speaker guidelines.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed to the assembly area located in front of the Department of Social Services building at 900 East Marshall Street. Citizens and employees should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors when exiting the building. Public speaker guidelines. Individuals wishing to speak during public hearings and the public comment period are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before the committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address or question staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time, and further disciplinary action is necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. Members of the public who registered in advance to speak virtually will be called at the appropriate time, either during public comment period or either during the public hearing for the legislation on which they sign up to address. Madam Chair, all members of the committee are in attendance today, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Can we proceed to public comment?
Public comment is now open. Is there anyone present who wishes to address the committee regarding items not on today's agenda? Madam Chair, seeing none and no one signed up to speak virtually before the 10 a.m. deadline, the public comment period is now closed and back to the committee.
Thank you so much. And there's no one online?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right. We will move forward with our presentations, and I believe we were expecting Megan Field from administration. Maybe she's just outside. If someone could let her know we have started. Hello, Ms. Fields, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today and for everything that you and administration has done to date since the water crisis started. We have moved briskly through the beginning part of our agenda, and we are now up to the water outage response with you up on deck. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, and pardon me for being late. My name is Megan Field. I'm a senior policy advisor to Acting Chief Administrative Officer Sabrina Joy Hogg, and I have the pleasure of representing the administration today. I want to start just by expressing our gratitude for the way the entire city came together during this crisis, from city council members and their staff and their liaisons to nonprofit partners to nearly every department in the city. This was an all hands on deck moment and continues to be. I think I've seen more of you at early morning calls or late evening calls than I ever expected to in a couple weeks, but we're really grateful for it. So today I'm not going to reiterate what the mayor shared at the last city council meeting. I know you all already have those updates and those timelines, but I am going to briefly introduce the folks that we have from the administration here to provide you new information and to lay out our recommended next steps for how we keep in touch with City Council to work together moving forward. So first today, we'd like to introduce the new director of DPU, Mr. Scott Morris, who I will briefly introduce and bring up in just a minute. I'm also very happy to share that as of about 4 o'clock yesterday, we've got a signed contract with our consultants who are going to provide the after action report. So they are here online and will be available to answer questions about their methodology, their similar experience doing these sorts of reports in other localities, and their expected timelines. Lastly, we have Director Willoughby here with us who can answer questions about emergency response in the previous days, but also going forward. I think these folks will have great information for you all about what we've been doing in the days since everyone was literally physically together in the EOC. And we'd like to recommend that going forward, we have a division of reporting to different committees that maximizes the expertise of the different committees and minimizes how much repetition has to occur. You know, I know many of you serve on multiple committees and staff has limited time as they're still implementing immediate recovery steps. So what we'd like to recommend for your consideration is that we continue updating this committee on what's going on at the water treatment plant and on other government operations. That Director Willoughby takes the charge at the Public Safety Committee on emergency management and response. We have consultants on board, Haggerty, who are specialists in both the disaster assistance applications that were well underway in writing at the moment, but also in emergency management and response. And we'd recommend that those reports go to the Public Safety Committee. And then in terms of support for the community who had impacts because of the event and who may have been affected, we'd like to recommend that that goes to Health and Human Services, where DCAO DeShazer has, I know, already been working with that leadership team. And then finally, we'd like to continue working with Council leadership and Council Chief of Staff to determine what's appropriate to bring to OD for the whole committee to hear. I know the committees also report at OD, so we don't want to repeat what you all are going to be sharing with one another, but whatever new information is appropriate in those moments, I know we've got one just a couple weeks away, and whatever is most appropriate for everyone to hear at the same time, we'll work with Vice President, President, Council, Chief of Staff to determine that at OD. So with that run of show of, I'd like to pass it off to Mr. Morris to introduce himself, to talk a little bit about the work he's done just since Friday. It's day 5 if we count the weekend, which surely his team does because they were there all weekend. But what the steps they've taken recently on our capacity building at the water treatment plant, and on any preliminary learning he's done, given that he's got 5 days under his belt. And then we can pass it off to our new after action consultants, HNTB, and finally end with Director Willoughby, if that's the pleasure of the chair.
I think that sounds reasonable. Thank you so much, Ms. Fields. And colleagues, if it's okay, I think we'll hold questions till each presenter gets through their segment. Does that work?
And we'll be here to answer questions as they arise after and throughout. So thank you all for the time and look forward to working with you.
Thank you for everything you're doing, Ms. Fields.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Scott Morris. I am the interim Department of Public Utilities Director. Just wanted to give you a brief overview of my background. You've probably seen it in the press release, but just for everybody's awareness, was in part of the United States Navy for 6 years in the Naval Nuclear Program. After that, I joined the City of Richmond as one of their plant operators and chief plant operators, and then ultimately went to Chesterfield County for about 10 years. Served in various roles up to the leadership role of the Assistant Director of Utilities. And then from there on, I went on to be the Chief Deputy at DEQ, and then also in my previous role as Water Division Director for DEQ. I hold a professional engineering license, wastewater operator Class 1 license, and multiple degrees varying from engineering to business management, and ultimately my doctorate in business administration. As was mentioned, I stepped into this role. I was actually sworn in on Friday, and so this weekend has been my learning curve. I've gotten information on the plant, the recovery activities, and I wanted to divulge to you guys that the process has been stood up, and we are putting out as much demand as needed by both the City of Richmond and our local partners. We're pacing our actual output of the water treatment plant based off those needs. So the reservoir levels are full, or they vary from day to day, but like during the day, but we're at capacity. We're in the process with our consultants. They've been on site since the incident, and they have set up a plan in place to fully recover the plant. That's going to take several iterations of repairs, but ultimately we'll get there. The water quality is safe to drink. We did pull back the boil water notice. I know there were some concerns during the event and then subsequently thereafter on water quality. Want to address those concerns. There is no impact from lead pipes associated with that. The pressure deviations you saw that during the event was either related to the interconnects with the system. Systems are set up to allow pressure release, pressure sustaining valves in the system, or it could be based off of different elevations in the customer home was comparable to the tank or the system. And so you might have seen various pressure fluctuations throughout the system, but that was not indicative of any systemic problem. Any other questions, I'd be happy to answer to the best of my ability. We are still in the process of doing the incident evaluation as mentioned. We're going to predicate some of our future response activities based off the findings of those reports. So some of our future strategic options of expanding the capacities of the treatment plant, expanding the resiliency of the treatment plant are going to be predicated off some of those findings.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, before I ask some of my questions, anyone have something they would like to ask our interim director?
Thank you for that, Interim Director. You mentioned that there are still repairs that are ongoing to kind of bring the plant back up to full operational capacity. What do those look like?
So those would be like akin to minor repairs associated with maybe like a pump that needs to be pulled out, a motor redone, things that have to be in incremental phases. So as we do recovery activities, we can't do everything at once. The initial one is getting to the most critical needs first, and then addressing those and getting it back to meet the demands at play right now. So right now we can fully operate with the demands of the system, and the intention, but before we get into spring or summer demands where they're higher, we'll have those activities fully recovered.
Yes, Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you. Similarly, I understand that the city made some purchases for equipment or other things that were needed in the midst of the crisis. Do you have a sense, or can you share the approximate costs of those materials, and if you have an understanding of how that was handled from a budgeting standpoint?
So as I mentioned, just stepped into that role. So I don't have the complete details from a budgetary perspective of all the purchases. I'm actually still getting caught up on some of those. So unfortunately, I can't answer your question right now.
Ms. Fields, is that something that you could respond to? I know you've been working with some of the documentation of this response. Thank you. And we may call you back up, Scott, but if step aside for just a moment, I'll let Ms. Fields answer the budget question. Thank you.
I also don't have it at my fingertips, but we can get it to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gibson, follow-up question or Ms. Field? Okay, thank you. And then thank you so much. I had a follow-up question about what we're going to hear from our Public Utilities Commission after this presentation. And just from your role at the DEQ, I think it'd be helpful for members in the public to understand the different levels of regulation and oversight that already exist for our Richmond water facility.
Sure. The public drinking water system is regulated by VDH, and then also ultimately that's the state level. On the federal level, that's EPA. In my role at DEQ, I was over the water division of DEQ. That's over clean water. So the divisions over there were clean water financing, water supply planning or water planning, and water permitting. And those are for what would be at the wastewater treatment plant, those regulatory authorities. And then the same approach is for that as is for the drinking water system. So DEQ would be the state regulatory agency, and then the federal oversight to that would be EPA as well.
Okay, thank you. So I think there has been sort of a general question of what oversight do we need so that an event like this hopefully would not reoccur? And was the oversight that already exists sufficient, or is there something that needs to be augmented locally? So just wondering if you have any thoughts on that at that moment, knowing that you've only been here for a few days, but maybe in the context of other localities, what you've seen. Thank you.
Yep, in the context of just in generality speaking, the state and federal oversight is adequate to ensure that you both have safe drinking water, but also fresh, clean water going into the receiving streams of the Commonwealth. We will be reviewing, as mentioned, the action report to see if what we need to do to improve at the city of Richmond, but also enhance the resiliency to move forward to make sure that those standards are met, and also ensure that we do maintain the system up in full operation.
Thank you. Members? Ms. Gibson?
Thank you. Going back to the budget again, the city is about to embark on our budgeting process, and I wanted to know what is the work that you see needing to happen to ensure that whatever needs exist in the department, either from a capital infrastructure standpoint to expenses, material expenses, or even additional headcount if necessary. Do you see that as being a large number that we should be expecting, and what do you need in order to make sure that the department is able to provide recommendations on what those budget items might be?
Yeah, so right now I'm still in a learning curve. And so what that means is I'm sitting down with each of my respective executive team members, going through each of their cost centers, seeing what priorities are for the agency, and then also going through and looking at previous reports that may have been submitted to Department of Public Utilities on asset infrastructure that needs to be replaced and prioritized, and then also looking at our long-term CIP from a planning perspective. I think ultimately what needs to happen in this is a sit-down review of all the items that have been put in place today, and then ultimately decide on a prioritization plan to ensure that we get to those critical assets as soon as possible to address the concerns and add that extra layer of resiliency that's needed for the system. So ultimately, I'm not going to express an actual budgetary value today because it's an unknown. Some of this is going to be predicated off of the action review reports that are being generated, because it may identify some areas that we need to enhance improvement that have been previously identified in the CIP. So if you give me a couple weeks, maybe a month or so, I can probably come back with adequate number that can kind of address what we think the future may hold.
Thank you.
Ms. Abu-Baker?
This may be a question for you, Madam Chair, but the questions that council submitted to the administration regarding both immediate after action, emergency response, and then sort of investment and investigation of, in particular, the October 22 EPA findings, when will those be responded to in full?
Thank you. Yes. I had the benefit of a pre-meeting with administration, and they have the same interests that we do, which is to fully answer all these questions. Some questions are not known at this moment, like the budget questions. We're still evaluating and prioritizing. Others, I think we have already had answered. And then, of course, there are conversations that I've had directly between council members, administration, the mayor, staff, et cetera. But this might be opportunity for Ms. Field, if you could come back up and just to the extent that these questions, which we did share over on Friday, and really represent, I think, what the public in general is asking, when it comes to the myriad of things that we saw over the last few weeks. If you could let us know sort of administration's plan on some of these buckets, or some of these items are going to fall into the bucket of third-party review, some from more of the regional planning, but if you could speak to that, please, Ms. Field.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for consolidating in one place. It was great. We spent the weekend thinking about how to tackle different ones, which is in part where our recommendation for reporting to different committees came from. So for example, the questions around relief for residents and businesses and water distribution are probably best answered at Health and Human Services. The after action investigation, future reforms, and much of the initial event and immediate response are going to come from the after action report. I think we're excited, and maybe this is actually the right moment to pass it off to our consultants, if the chair thinks so. Um, it's fantastic that we can rely on outside experts who don't have a stake in this, who have a lot of expertise, and we really want to give them the benefit of the doubt of doing this correctly. So that, frankly, will be much of this. I will also flag, it's probably, you're all well aware of it, but worth reiterating that the priority at the moment has been ensuring that the water treatment plant is as stable as it can be. We had a couple, luckily minor snow incidents. And so the folks who are on the ground in the water treatment plant, their number one priority was making sure that nothing like this happened again. Those same people are the people who the after action report needs to interview. They're the same folks who we need to help us to put together our disaster assistance applications and our appeals to the General Assembly for funding. They're the same folks who help answer FOIA requests. They're the same folks who need to be interviewed at the moment so that what's in their minds about the immediate preceding days don't disappear as we all think about this in the future. So these are the same people who are literally working, 20 hours a day or something close to it. So I hope there will be a brief moment of grace as these folks prioritized making sure that the water treatment plant was secure and that our water was safe and reliable, and then immediately get into meeting these legally inflexible mandates around when disaster assistance applications have to be submitted, around when FOIA has to be submitted, when the General Assembly is here, as we all know well. So we're going to rely heavily on this team, and Scott, I know, is getting to know his team well and is making the best use of them as he can, and we're bringing in consultants to help wherever we can. But it's a long-winded way of saying that much of this will be answered in the after-action report, excepting a few things that probably may be outside of that scope around, for instance, small business assistance or assistance to families who may have been affected. But we expect to work with you all to get answers for every single question in this in the right venue. Nothing's outside of the scope in terms of what the administration is going to get back to you. It may just be outside of the scope of HNTB or of Haggerty, our emergency preparedness consultants.
Ms. Gibson?
Thank you. I do have a question. In the midst of the crisis, what I heard from the community, what I expressed and what I heard others express was the need for what we called a third-party investigation. And the terminology that I'm hearing today is an after-action report. And there seems to be, I think there's some nuance in that language that is worth considering. It would be helpful to see, for one, the contract between the city and the organization in terms of their scope of work, and to make that public. I think the public wants to see exactly what they've been tasked to do. And I think the public is going to want to know too, how much are we spending on it, and so, but absent that, or, since I haven't seen that, I do want to have an understanding in terms of the scope that they've been tasked to do. Obviously we want to know how we're moving forward, but in truth, we won't be able to move forward and earn the trust of the city if we don't have a clear, deep dive investigation as to what happened. And so I want to have a clear understanding. I think the public wants a clear understanding of how we're going to get that information, what documentation, what types of interviews will be conducted, who is going to be a part of that, to ensure that we're able to get a clear understanding as to how we got here. And I guess a question that I have for Mr. Morris, being fairly new, is like, how crazy is it that this happened? Have you seen this type of thing happen in other municipalities? how alarmed should the city be that we were out without water for a week after a power outage?
Wonder also when the right moment to tap in HNTB would be. I know that
Yeah, Ms. Field, I think what we're going to let our interim director respond to the second question. And then Ms. Gibson, I do believe when we get H&TB on, they will be able to talk to the scope of their work. Thank you.
Yeah,
And-
I don't think it's a matter of concern. I think it brings to the attention of their improvements to be made, and the level of interconnectedness between systems per se. So that's what you can minimize your risks associated with interruptions in water treatment, right? So there's instances across the state and also in instances across the time frame or timelines where you may have like a spill activity that goes into a river or segment of stream that has an intake, and in order to ensure that that intake doesn't become contaminated, you have to shut off, right? And in those instances, you have to plan for those emergencies. So this does happen throughout the Commonwealth. It has happened in other places. So I think what you need to build on and pay attention to in this instance is shoring up your emergency procedures, shoring up your resiliency planning, and making sure that you have a plan in place to react when it does occur. Because ultimately, there will be interruptions in power, there will be storms, there will be something that occurs that causes you to interrupt your normal operations. And then when you switch from normal operations to emergency planning, emergency operations, you need to have those procedures in place and to make sure that you remediate some of those risks. And it's just planning. That's what needs to take place. It's not a matter of is this event severe or order of magnitude above all the others. You need to have those preliminary items in place to ensure that you can maintain production of your water treatment plant, or as an alternative, switch to another supply, or as an alternative, have some interconnection to your system to minimize those risks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, Madam Clerk, do we have representatives from H&TB available via Teams?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you.
And just while they're unmuting, President Newbell and I had the opportunity to be part of the selection process for this forensic third-party review. And there were a number of really good candidates. Appreciate our procurement team working to swiftly identify with administration and our partners in the counties and otherwise who are bringing forward recommendations. Some really great candidates who could get started quickly because one, I think time is of the essence. We want to do this investigation while memories are fresh, while people can be the most productive as possible in these conversations. And then, two, we had the constraint of trying to find a firm that did not have a pre-existing relationship with the city. So I know our counties were able to jump a little bit quicker because they had contracts already with parties that had done work with their facilities. We wanted an outside group. Took a few days longer, but I'm pleased that we have, I think, as you will hear, a very well-established firm to lead us in this next phase. So with that, welcome to the Governmental Operations Standing Committee.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Jason Hoff. I work for H&TB Corporation. We're a large national multidisciplinary engineering firm of about 7,000 people. We have offices coast to coast, and we specialize in a lot of different areas of civil engineering. Specifically, my focus is within the water and wastewater realm. I wanted to introduce ourselves. I also have with me the water director for our firm. His name is Bob Page. He's sitting off to the side. You can't see him. He's right behind me. There he goes. But we're both here. So just to kind of predicate what our involvement has been to date, we were contacted and quickly started working with the administration. And as Ms. Field noted, as of yesterday afternoon, we're now under contract to come and help with the after action response for this incident.
Thank you so much, Jason. If you could just give a sense of the scope of work and how your firm will be proceeding with that, sort of, what comes first, what you're looking at trying to gather in the short term, near term, and long term. Thank you.
Sure. Happy to discuss that. So in the short term, there's going to be multiple steps of our process. as I'm sure you can imagine. First and foremost is a lot of desktop analysis on our side. It's researching as much as we can on your system. As Ms. Field noted, we're kind of independent. We have not done extensive work for the city of Richmond. So we're getting up to speed that way. We have a team that's reviewing documents, finding out as much information. We're going to do all our preliminary homework. It's anticipated that we'll actually have boots on the ground starting next Monday to be within the facility, to not only see the facility, see the failure, see the recovery, but also interview the operations staff and discuss with them, interview, their take, what happened, develop the timeline of the series of events, and work to respond to quite a few of the questions that have been presented. After that, we'll present preliminary findings that is anticipated to occur within the first 2 weeks of our scope of work, and then we will continue down the process, and that's where we'll really get into addressing many more of the questions that have been asked. What standard operating procedures exist, what are maybe some of the shortcomings, long-term basis, what could City of Richmond and the Department of the Utilities do to assure everyone that this level of failure wouldn't occur again.
Okay, thank you. And I believe when we interviewed you, you had some case studies of cities that you had worked in before. Is there one that comes to mind that you might want to highlight now?
Sure. Unfortunately, I know you'd asked the director if this sort of failure happens, and unfortunately it does. I have a client here in Indiana. They're a 60 MGD facility located on the Ohio River that a few years ago had a similar failure, that they ended up losing pressure. They went under boil advisory. They weren't to the extent of the failure that you all experienced, but these things do tend to happen. So that was a 60 MGD facility, essentially a power outage, a switchgear failure, and they lost forward flow of their facility as well. It's very similar vintage, with portions of that plant dating back almost 100 years. Generally, we see these types of failures occur, and it's not necessarily due to the fault of one smoking gun or one answer that we'll be able to, pinpoint it to. It's usually multifaceted of this happened, this was done, an expansion in, the 1970s, and this works well, and this bottleneck happened here. And there's typically several issues that led to the conclusion. It's not going to be one pinpoint, issue that we'll be able to isolate, but hopefully we'll be able to determine several improvement areas that you could, work towards improving and ultimately creating a more robust system.
Thank you, colleagues. Any questions for our consultants here with HNTP? Ms. Albebaker?
Thank you for that brief. I am wondering, as a part of your on-the-ground interview process, will you be doing an interview of former Director Bingham, and or was there an exit interview done with her before her leaving the city?
At this time, I don't have a list of everyone that we would interview yet. We're still working through those details. As was mentioned, we came under contract yesterday, but essentially anyone that can help with the investigation, whether the city had done an exit interview or if we can make that happen, we would like valuable information to know.
Thank you. Member Gibson?
Thank you. I was wondering if the team will have access to any tips that may have been submitted through our investigator general regarding the utility. I mean, I would expect we receive over thousands of tips from employees over the years. And, oftentimes if things are not done with fidelity, there are people that are on the team have concerns about that and express their concerns. And I think it would be beneficial to include any of that type of information to really tell a full story as to what may have gone wrong.
Sure. It's our intent as anything we can get our hands on to help, put this puzzle back together for you. We would use that information, prudently where applicable.
Thank you, Member Gibson. Absolutely. One of the questions I had when we went through the selection process was these firms' experience working with elected bodies, with auditors, with IGs, because it's going to take all of that background, to get a fulsome report, which is what I think everyone expects. Follow-up question?
Yes. This is more of an internal question. Given that our auditor and the inspector general report to council, have we established a point person on our staff who will ensure that the consultant team have access to all of that type of documentation and information?
We have an audit committee. I don't think we have come to this question yet. So I would expect leadership or the audit committee to be working with administration and with this team.
Thank you.
We are moving briskly through this after action, and there is a lot that we are, learning as we go. Certainly, this is a new work item for me. With that, I think I will ask Mr. Willoughby to come up. And Jason, appreciate you and your team. I'm sure you're ready to get back to some of that desktop analysis that is part of your scope. We look forward to more briefings from you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Willoughby. Thank you for being here with us.
Good afternoon. Stephen Willoughby, Director of Emergency Communications Preparedness and Response for the city. To provide some context for our new council members, about a year ago, the mayor identified that we needed to sort of reimagine emergency management in the city of Richmond. So we did a reorganization. He appointed me as the coordinator of emergency management, a cabinet level position, and we merged emergency communications and emergency management into the same department. Now, that being said, the Office of Emergency Management consists of four individuals. What we were able to do, the conversations I've had with the mayor during the transition. In fact, I met with him on his first day in office on January 2nd, and we've had these discussions of a lot of work has been done since we've made that change, but there's a lot of work that still needed to be done. And the mayor shared his commitment to us creating an emergency preparedness a environment in the city as well. And so we recognize that. Once the Emergency Operations Center was activated, I identified probably by day 2 that the emergency management staff needed some additional augmentation, as well as sort of looking forward to, okay, what happens once we get this under control? So I engaged a firm called Haggerty Consulting. Sort of their background is they've been involved in some of the largest recovery projects, disaster recovery projects in the nation. They were involved in 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Sandy, as well as Hurricane Irma. I engaged them. They helped provide some additional staff augmentation for the emergency management team in the Emergency Operations Center. So the emergency management team sort of coordinates activities that are happening in the Emergency Operations Center. I also engaged them to begin doing a incident response assessment. And what that really encompasses is analyzing the response to the incident. And I want to be clear, these, unlike the firm we just talked about who is investigating what happened at the plant, what they're doing is assessing how the city responded to the incident. And what we want to do is identify the strengths that we want to make sure that we maintain and build upon, but also identify potential areas of improvement. And the recommendations for future planning, as well as training and exercise that our city and our city employees need, as well as recommendations for changes to policies and procedures in emergency response. This assessment will be based upon reviews of planning documents that we have in place, as well as the current policies. But it'll also include interviews with key stakeholders and elected officials. So this morning, you should have gotten in your email box an invitation to set up an appointment with Haggerty Group to share your thoughts in regards to the city's response and areas that could be improved, or submit information via a survey, because we want to make sure that we're being comprehensive. It was important for me that we have a third party come in and do this evaluation and bringing in best practices in what we do going forward. Also, what I asked Haggerty to do is provide us some technical assistance. They've been in this space for a while, and they do this sort of all day, every day, where we don't have a disaster, thank God, here in Richmond all day, every day. So they're helping us also identify both federal and state resources for us for potential reimbursement, but also for our opportunities for our businesses that had revenue losses. The final thing that I've asked them to come in and do, and this we will kick this off next week, is a post-disaster recovery plan. Now, what a post-disaster recovery plan, it provides structure and framework for us rebuilding and addressing long-term impacts after a disaster. It also outlines steps that we need to take immediately following a disaster, and allowing for the coordination of efficient response and assess damage. Also prioritize needs, guide us in the recovery process, minimize further losses, so on and so forth. The recommendation on how to address social and economic drivers and vulnerabilities that we have in our community. And so it was important when we engaged them in this that we have a community element to that recovery process as well. So we're scoping out what that community involvement looks like, but at minimum, there will be a community needs assessment that is done with this, so that we have a comprehensive recovery plan that the city can use and build upon in the future. A couple of things I want to address that I shared in my meeting with Haggerty that I recognize were challenges that we need to make sure are addressed is sort of the communication flow that was going on between what was happening at the water plant, what was happening with the emergency response, and our elected leaders, city council. And we also had some of these challenges in the Emergency Operations Center. So I've asked them to include that in their after action review of methodologies and ways that we can improve the communications flow to our elected officials. Also, I have to admit that when emergency management fell under me, we did a complete assessment of that. And one of the vulnerabilities that we saw was our mass communication system had flaws in it in regards to it was not able to do some things that we need to do as a progressive emergency management agency. So we began procuring a new mass communication system. Now, unfortunately for me, the deployment of what we're calling Richmond Ready is February 3rd. And so it was not in place during this incident. And so even though we tried to do mass communications, some folks got it if they were registered with Code Red, but we were unable to do the what's called iPause, or where we're able to push notifications out to any cell phone within a jurisdiction. Even despite of reaching out to the vendor and working through, we were not able to accomplish that. So unfortunately, the current system that we have proved me right in regards to we needed to replace that. Unfortunately, it had not been replaced yet. What I've done since is I've transitioned our iPause, which is the national program that pushes that out. I've pushed that over to our new platform already, so that if we need to push out a iPause message today, we're able to do that on our new platform, even though we've not completely fully launched for the public consumption of that. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Willoughby. I mean, I think communications was one that, was frustrating, and I think you really don't value something until you feel like it's not working the way you would like. And I want to commend everyone who rallied to get information out. It wasn't always pretty, but I think everyone tried extremely hard through the channels they had available to them to not only collaborate, to reach people as far as they could. And you mentioned the community needs assessment, and I would just commend our community in stepping up and filling in the gaps for where the state and local governments were struggling. And we saw neighbors helping neighbors, community leaders stepping in, making sure that the group home they knew about was getting serviced with water. Obviously, appreciate the National Guard coming in later in the week, but the community, I cannot thank the community enough for what they did to get us through this. We were all working together, but they really stepped up.
Yes.
So I'm thrilled to hear that there's a new system coming online. It was, to me, troubling that we couldn't find any sort of patch or other software to reach out to in the interim. But again, people made it work, And I hope for something much smoother and comprehensive in the days to come, because that was a stress test I don't think anyone wanted to go through. I will open up for questions at this moment with the acknowledgement that you're going to be doing a deeper dive on this topic at public safety.
Yes, Haggerty will be here to
Okay.
go deeper into what their scope of work is at Public Safety Committee meeting next Tuesday, and we'll walk through that response plan.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair?
First off, I wanted to say thank you for acknowledging the sort of shortcomings of the Code Red system. I know it's not always as we're not always apt to acknowledge when we have system shortcomings, and knowing that you've identified that and that Richmond Ready was already rolling out is great to hear. And that was definitely one of the things that many constituents reached out to me about, was sort of the inconsistent nature. So being able to go back to them and share that this is a system. My question for Richmond, is that geo-located as opposed to based on a particular cell phone number? So if you're within the bounds of the city of Richmond, will the iPause, as you called it, be able to just push that notification out without any care of like what the phone number is? It's just a geo.
Right.
It's a geo-tagged.
Yes,
System.
if a cell phone is located in the geographical boundaries of the city, they should receive this alert. So it doesn't matter if you're subscribed to this service or not. It would push that out with iPause. Now there will be another feature in there as well, if individuals can sign up for sort of less urgent messages from the city that we're hoping to expand upon our ability of notifying individuals of if there's protests going on or roads are blocked, or we can do a much more comprehensive notification of those types of those incidents as it goes through. Again, that's some of the challenges that we have with our existing system. The other challenge with our existing system is simply people could not update their information in it. So, I mean, myself, I have like 4 different records in there. Old address, new address, work address. And so it's just very clumsy. And we recognized that we needed to make a change. Unfortunately, the go live date for that was not sooner.
Yeah, I understand. And then just a quick follow-up question. You had mentioned, a year ago when emergency comms and emergency management were sort of merged into this one organization. Had you at that point engaged? Haggerty Group has been engaged prior to any of this. Is that correct? They were doing sort of an assessment already.
Well, Haggerty has assisted us in a couple of aspects of that, but this particular area is at least new to our engagement with Haggerty.
Thank you. Member Gibson?
Thank you. I wanted to ask just a little bit more about the engagement with Haggerty. One, I'm always curious about cost, so just to have a sense of how much we're spending to do that. Also, the overall timeline, and then finally, I mean, I guess I'm curious, like, what do you see as possible actions? I mean, I want to make sure the public knows we're not just doing, having someone put together some recommendations then for nothing, right? I mean, I think we've seen a lot of reports and analysis, and then nothing comes from it. So if you could just share a sense of what types of action do you think are possible based on those what do you think it could look like in terms of what we actually do?
So I think the answer to that question, sort of foreseeing what will likely come out of this report, is with the background our current mayor has. He understands emergency preparedness and the need to train and exercise. And we've had conversations about enhancing training, enhancing exercises. I think this will reinforce that need, but it'll also help point us in the right directions in regards to what training and what exercises, emergency management exercises that we need to do. And on the heels of this crisis, I think it now becomes, to a degree, in my conversations, both internally and externally in regards to emergency preparedness. Fortunately for the city of Richmond, it's been sort of hypothetical. If something does happen, we need to be prepared and do it this way. And unfortunately, this crisis has sort of put this at the forefront and making us reinforcing the need that we need to do some of these things that we should be doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm not sure if I completely answered your question.
Yeah. Member Gibson, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I don't believe you did. I want to know how much the report and the engagement is going to cost. And then I guess I'm just thinking, I was hoping to get something a bit more specific in terms of what you think actions might come.
Oh, I think what actions will come is in some enhancements to our plans, some training on those plans, particularly continuity of operations plans, doing a deeper dive. I've already been given directions from the chief administrative officer to sort of pull out those plans and really explore those with department heads to make sure that they're being comprehensive. So looking at that. And this recovery plan will also sort of help us with looking at the community as well, not just how the city is responding, but how we're interacting with the community and how to better do that. We've mentioned some of the communications with elected officials, but also probably with the public, and also helping. I think what will come out of it is more efforts to help our community to be prepared. Those ready kits that you hear about is really pushing some of that messaging out and really preparing our community so that when a disaster strikes, that they're much better equipped.
Thank you. And then the cost of this work, was it just for the response, or was it an ongoing contract that you have with them?
So the contract is based upon the time that they spend on that. The cost is I don't have the exact number, but it is around $400,000.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Field, it's possible to have sort of a running ledger of the cost. I'm sure you're keeping that related to the water response and which things we are going after federal funds or which things insurance might be paying for, et cetera, just to give us sort of a picture of the financial implications of this event.
Yeah, if I may, my office is working directly with Megan in the CEO's office, as well as budget and finances, and capturing these costs. But yes, those costs are all included in that as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Willoughby, and we will look forward to more information to come at public safety. And please thank everyone on your team. The communication is just critical. We appreciate everything you're doing to help keep our community safe and informed.
All right, thank you.
Okay, with that, members, do we have any further questions for Ms. Field or any of our other presenters today on the water response? Ms. Gibson?
I was just wondering if, in the meantime, if Ms. Fields was able to pull the number for how much the investigation is going to cost.
No, I'm so sorry. When I said get back to you soon, I didn't mean right now.
Okay.
But as soon as we walk out of here and I don't have to also listen at the same time.
Okay.
I'm not a great multitasker.
Great.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, I just want to again thank everyone who's been working on this, from the council side, from staff side, community, our friends in the media who've helped share out information for those that aren't getting it directly from council or the mayor's office. It's been all hands on deck, as Ms. Field so rightly described it, and more information to come. This is obviously an ongoing situation that we continue to react to and investigate and make progress on for the city. With that, I think we'll move on. Oh, I just want to say one other note of thanks to our friends of the General Assembly. Obviously, in the federal level, we've got a great local delegation that is working to procure hopefully more funding for our budget to address our critical infrastructure needs. And just as a reminder to everyone who doesn't follow along with minutia of council and the mayor's office, our only budgetary request from council was for our CSO, combined stormwater overflow. It was for our water infrastructure, and it was Again, something that has been at the forefront. This is something we all need to continue to engage in. So thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Yes, just one final thing. I think, as the city, we are learning from this experience. I think that as we think about the work of this committee moving forward, we may want to consider, what types of audits and assessments and reviews we can be doing of other departments, other utility teams, other services in the city to ensure that some of the gaps that have been discovered in this process can be caught before we see a similar emergency happen.
I think that is a great segue to our next presentation. We have Kevin Caffarini, our Commission Chair for the Public Utilities and Services Commission, with a report from 2024, which unfortunately we didn't get onto the agenda in 2024.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me? Awesome. Well, thank you for having me this afternoon and giving me the opportunity to speak today. It's great to see some familiar faces as well as some new faces now that we're in the new year. Like Catherine mentioned, my name is Kevin Cianfrini, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Public Utilities and Services Commission, of which I'm the chair. So I'm here today to give a brief overview of the Commission's October 2024 report. And of course, I would be remiss not also to mention the recent water crisis we've all experienced towards the end of my comments. So the Public Utilities and Services Commission was passed into law in November of 2023 and started meeting in June of 2024. To date, we've been functioning for about 6 months and have met 10 times prior to issuing the required October report. I'm also happy to relay that the Commission and its subcommittees are in a place where we can meet on a recurring basis and dig into pressing utility issues. The report that the Commission authored in October touches on 2 matters. First, as Chair Jordan mentioned, DPU staff routinely underscored the importance of securing additional grant funding for the mandated combined sewer overflow upgrade projects occurring across the city. Without such additional funding, complying with state law would require DPU to increase residents' water bills. And I'd like to take this opportunity to echo that sentiment that the city should continue advocating for more funding from the General Assembly for the combined sewer overflow upgrades. Second, after meeting for several months with the Commission, we've identified a structural issue which has been documented in our report and has since been partially solved. Attaining a quorum to vote on issues before the Commission has been challenging, given that for the first few months of our operations, 3 seats of the Commission remained vacant. Thankfully, after publishing our report, the former mayor appointed the remaining 3 commissioners and partially alleviated this pressure. However, commissioners operate on a volunteer basis. For our body to function alongside the necessary city staff, we found it's most convenient to meet during normal operating business hours. This places strain on commissioners' attendance who, as volunteers, typically also hold full-time jobs. For example, I am currently missing a meeting at my full-time job to attend this committee meeting. A side effect of this, which is documented in the report, is that the required solid waste standing subcommittee of the Commission has not yet met. We have found it difficult for 13 volunteers to adequately staff the required 5 standing subcommittees and also participate in full Commission meetings. And I think this capacity issue serves as a good segue into the recent water crisis we've all experienced. So like City Council, just a few days ago, the Commission was scrambling to understand what our role was in the water crisis and how we might help. Many City Council members use their platform to communicate crucial information to constituents, sometimes up to 3 times per day, in a display of what true stellar public service looks like. The obvious question is, why was it necessary, and how can we avoid future utility crises? I believe City Council will agree that that's the role of an oversight commission. During the January 13th City Council meeting, several comments were made about the Commission, one of which mentioned City Council's desire for the Commission to provide greater accountability and transparency of Richmond's utilities. After working with the Commission for several months, I can confidently articulate what we're well equipped to undertake given our current structure and what requires modification to ensure Mayor and the Council receive effective oversight on direct utility operations. In its current iteration, the Commission is well positioned to serve as a channel that provides structured and actionable feedback to Council and the Mayor to identify and remedy gaps between the public's perception and the reality of the city's services, and finally, to advocate on behalf of the public for better functioning, more reasonably priced, and healthier utilities. We've started to find a footing in this role and want to encourage the public as well as city council members to attend our January 30th meeting at 3 p.m., which will be held in Richmond's main library at 101 East Franklin Street. We expect DPU's water utility leadership to be present to help answer questions from commissioners about the recent water crisis. Just a note, if members of the public are unable to attend the meeting, they can instead email their concerns to rva.pusc@gmail.com. So, in contrast, the commission's structure does not properly facilitate some of the duties outlined in city code. The current resourcing constraints of the commission hinder its ability to meaningfully fulfill its duty in discerning the scope of issues and problems related to service delivery and quality of service. In contrast to Richmond's commission, which has a $5,000 budget and minimal staff allocation, other bodies with similar oversight duties have much larger budgets and a much greater staff capacity. Virginia State Corporation Commission, for example, which oversaw 32 water utilities in 2023, has a several $100 million budget and specialized engineering, finance, and law expertise on staff. The SEC's model may be considered excessive for Richmond's municipal utilities, but the large disparity in resources between Richmond's commission and the state's is notable. Another oversight mechanism the city might consider could be modeled after the United States Government Accountability Office, a body whose main goal is to determine how well government programs are meeting their objectives. Such a body could be staffed and work with the existing commissioners to ensure that the public's needs are being met and reports, like the 2022 EPA report, are actioned. This model closely aligns with Mayor Avula's desire to take a broad look at the city's infrastructure, which he voiced at January 13th City Council meeting. Richmond's Office of the City Auditor is currently tasked with some of this functionality, and with modification and additional personnel could possibly serve in this role well. These examples of additional oversight measures the city can undertake are not exhaustive, they're just merely demonstrative. I applaud the city's efforts to conduct a swift and publicly available postmortem of the city's water utility, but alone this measure is insufficient. Ensuring the city's utilities do not experience a similar future failure requires robust and a continual oversight mechanism that not only applies to just one incident and just one of four city utilities. To underscore this, I'd like to surface last weekend's gas service outage near Jank Road in Southside, about which the commission has received numerous pieces of feedback. Residents expressed severe discontent about this perceived total lack of communication from DPU regarding the service failure and its associated remediation. One resident went so far as to claim he resorted to opening a valve manually by themselves to resume gas service to their home. City Council has already expressed its desire for utility oversight when it passed ordinance number 2023-315. The water crisis has stress tested its structure and capabilities and exposed where improvements should be made. The crux is that utility oversight requires funding, staffing, and public input to work effectively, and the commission looks forward to working with council and the mayor to implement that. I'd like to close by saying I'm honored to have been selected to serve on the commission and serve as its chair. I volunteer my time because I love Richmond, it's my home, and I want to make a positive impact. The same holds true for every other commissioner. We look forward to working together with the mayor and council during the water crisis retrospective, and we firmly believe that Richmond deserves well-resourced, and effective utility oversight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all you do on this commission. And as folks may recall, this was an initiative that former Councilmember Andreas Addison and I pushed forward to bring back, because we do need this public body to help augment where council can't be everywhere. And clearly there seems to be a gap between our existing regulatory organizations, EPA, Department of Public Health, environmental water quality, et cetera, and our city operations. So I think the work will continue. I will open up to questions, but my comments would be that the work obviously is to continue about how your organization, the Public Utilities Commission, which again, really just has not met that often, like you're kind of getting your legs underneath you, can best serve not just only this crisis in response, but also these larger questions of our utilities at large, how we act as a regional partner. I know one of my main drivers and interest in bringing back the Public Utilities Commission was our Richmond Gas Works, and what does it look like to be an energy provider in our region, and those sustainability questions that come not just financially, but when it comes to the climate emergency. So you guys have a heady task, and I think you're right to push on questions if you're appropriately resourced for it. But I want to take that question and also extend it to, like, what are the other regulatory agencies in making sure that their role is making it all the way down and being as effective as possible, because we do have much larger bodies, more well-resourced, and I don't want to try and duplicate something that they're doing. We need to all complement. So with that, I will open it up to my colleagues. Chair Abu Bakr.
Yeah, first I want to address the Jenk Road gas crisis over the weekend,
Sure.
because I did hear from many constituents about that and did reach out to DPU about getting that remediated, and it was fixed, but still inexcusable and definitely another example of aging infrastructure and our necessity to invest in that infrastructure. You did mention, I wholeheartedly agree that there are many opportunities for you to be better resourced so that you can actually leverage the cumulative energy and dedication on this commission. What are some comparables in terms of municipality support? I know you talked about the SEC and the EPA, but in terms of like, we're not the federal government, so like, what are some of the like comparables, like in terms of Henrico's dedication of resources, staffing, and budgetary, maybe Chesterfield's, or another, I'd even take like another capital city in a different state?
I think Richmond is actually in a somewhat good place for this, given the current structure of the city auditor's office. I think given, specialized staff and personnel who are more dedicated specifically to public utilities would pay benefits, if that answers your question.
Just to clarify, so you're talking about additional staff in the auditor's office that would specialize in public utilities and that science and engineering aspect of it in terms of investigating the various public utilities we have here in the city of Richmond. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you want.
Yes, that's correct. And specifically tasked with the goal not necessarily of finding like fraud, waste, and abuse, but more geared towards making sure we're reaching our goals with, in regards to utilities, meeting the public need for communication, meeting the public need for service, meeting the public need for, financial concerns, for example. I think the city auditor's office would potentially be a good place for that. There are obviously other models we need to research, and I think this is just the beginning of that conversation, and we should consider speaking about that further. And I'd love to be given the opportunity to do so.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Member Gibson.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your work. It is unfortunate that it took a crisis like this to ensure that we have the appropriate checks and balances in place for our system. A couple of questions or just thoughts. One, I'm wondering if the commission can task itself to develop more specific recommendations in terms of how the body can be more effective in its role. And I'm talking about specifically, how much money, what type of staffing do we recommend? Because it's true, given this utility, right? We're not even talking about just the residents of Richmond. This is, we supply water regionally. And so the notion that we would be able to provide oversight with enough money to essentially buy folks lunch is notable. And so I think it would be imperative to have an understanding of what do we need to, what does this need to look like, and understanding, we likely won't have $1 million budget, although I think it is worth pausing and noting, right, that we are spending almost $500,000 just on consultants for, emergency management. And so, so what can we do to be proactive and ensure that we have the staff in place for us to be able to react? And so in those recommendations, I think, what the structure needs to look like, what the staffing needs to look like. I also think, what documentation can and should be just made public for across the board, so that folks like you, media, everyday residents, if they have questions, there's a place where they can go and get answers to be able to see, how testing and ongoing assessments look. I think that's the way we build trust too in the system. And then finally, in those recommendations, it would also be helpful to get a sense of if there are any legal or scope changes in the documentation that council adopted to create the commission. I know that one of the items that is within the scope of the commission is to conduct research. And from my perspective, a third-party investigation is research, and so I want to make sure that there's no question. Given the reality, given the stakes, we do not have. We can't risk questioning who's doing what. And it needs to be very clear, what do we mean by research, and what does that allow you to be able to do? And is there any additional authority that needs to be defined so that your team and the commission is able to get information that it needs, have those discussions so that any needs can be brought to the attention of both city council and administration to be addressed with urgency, because this is a critical service that that needs to be, we need to have a tight ship.
I think there's a few questions there. The first one is, what do specifics look like? Is that correct? So the commission is working on putting together specifics and are eager to send them to members of city council and potentially the mayor's office to hopefully hammer out what that looks like. And I'd love to continue that conversation. I can't give any specifics at this very moment. I believe the next question was, what is the scope of research? What does research mean? And what is the role of that for the commission in relation to, third-party contractors that are performing a postmortem for the water utility? What I hope the commission serves as is more of a proactive body that hopes to stop utility crises before they happen. I hope a well-resourced oversight check could perform that kind of duty within reasonable bounds, right? Like if you have really severe natural disasters, it's probably hard to design engineering systems for those to withstand them. But for example, we probably should have been able to survive a power outage in comparison. So to answer your question, I view the commission as more proactive, whereas contractors would be more reactive and backwards looking. And I hope research for that kind of thing would provide that, sort of insight for what are the gaps with our utilities? What do we need to do? What things aren't we actioning, for example, like that EPA report? And then can you remind me, am I missing one of your questions?
I think the third piece was in terms of published documentation.
Yes. So one of my goals serving on the commission has always been to increase public transparency. I know that somebody who was formerly working on this just as a member of the public concerned about utilities, a frustrating aspect to this was the opacity of the entire situation. I think it would be good to surface publicly, for example, contracts, for example, the gas utility, like what are the wholesale prices of gas that we are buying, and what are the contracts with industrial partners, industrial customers of the gas utility, for example, and knowing those financial details and having those be available to the public to know exactly who's paying what portion of the rate burden is very valuable. That's something I would want to know as a ratepayer to make sure I am paying a fair price for my utilities, for example. I think that starts to partially answer your question. I don't think there's really any limit to like what information does the public want to know, because it's very quick to overwhelm them, and it's kind of like a never-ending thing. Like utilities are very involved, concepts. You can make it all public, but at that point, it's hard to pick the wheat from the chaff. If that makes sense.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm just reminded every day that we have amazing people in the community that serve on these boards and commissions that have, taken time out of their work as you have today. I wanted to touch on one question, I would say hurdle that your commission, and I'm sure the others are facing, is just the logistics of being able to meet. And you can't do the work if you're not meeting. And I think I would like this body to sidebar and think of some things that maybe we have to look at in our rules and procedures so that you can have virtual meetings, and make sure that we're fully getting you guys staff to do this important assignment that you've taken on. I also wanted to share with folks who aren't as familiar with the Public Utility Commission that we do have non-voting members from the counties. And I do think it's really important as we continue to work through this process and discuss all of our utilities, that those who are the customers, are also at the table, because we can't operate in a vacuum. And it doesn't make sense to have a commission that also doesn't have DPU staff and DBW staff on it. So I think we've put together a good commission. We need to look at enhancing the resources, making sure it can function, and then see how it fits within the broader context of these other regulatory bodies and the findings that come out of these reports. And in our discussions with the different vendors who are looking to perform the analysis and investigation, the expectation absolutely is that they come and they present at your commission. I think you guys are uniquely qualified to be able to ask questions that maybe average citizen might not, because you do have some folks with expertise in your membership. Were there additional questions from the body? Do you have a follow-up question? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll let you get back to your day job. Really appreciate you. All right. Moving on through the agenda. We are now at papers. Oh, no, sorry. Our third presentation. I know this is why everyone is in the room, tuned in today. We've got a discussion on honorary street sign renamings. And welcome, Mr. Perkins.
Good afternoon. My name is Will Perkins. I'm the Senior Legislative Services Manager for the Council. And thank you, Councilman Chair Jordan, for the introduction. I'm here today to talk about the Council's process and research related to honorary street signs, which is something this committee has covered several times in its recent meetings. So as a bit of background, this committee has talked repeatedly in over the past year about standardizing and developing a process for nominations and introduction of honorary street signs. My predecessor in this role, Joyce Davis, put together some research on past trends. You can see the chart there that in recent years has been an increase in the frequency of these, which has put some pressure basically into our city's administration of these. And the council took a pause in recent years to take a step back and look at how we should do this. Specifically in December, this body asked council staff to survey members about various decision points on what we should do. And we heard back from 8 of 9 members. And I'm here today to talk through the results of that survey. So we asked 7 questions of council members. The first question was about if members believed that another body should review nominations prior to council consideration. Members, majority of respondents said that yes, an outside body should review nominations. However, there was not a clear mandate from the results as to which bodies should do that. You can see that on the screen there in the 2 charts. So 5 of 8 said yes, an outside body should do so. However, of those 5, there wasn't a clear majority in support of one group or the other. 2 of the 5 did suggest a History and Culture Commission, but again, only 2 out of the 5. Additionally, we asked if members supported an annual limit on the number of nominations that a member could put forward. 5 of 8 said yes, there should be an annual limit. Unfortunately, there wasn't a clear consensus on what that limit should be. So we think, yes, there should be a limit for the council, but whether that limit should be 1 per member, 2, 3, up to 6, you can see the bottom chart on that page. Wide variety of answers as to what that limit could be, and so we'll have to dig into that further. Question 3 asked which agency should be budgeted for this. I think at the moment, there's not a clear budget line to pay for these, although there is obviously a material cost as well as a time cost for staff to manufacture and install these. So the consensus from members responding was that it should be the Department of Public Works, DPW, which makes sense. They're the ones who do that now, but we should basically put that money in the budget as the consensus from members. We asked 3 more questions broadly about eligibility for people to be nominated. The consensus from respondents was that people should be the ones honored with signs rather than entities like a church or a school. It should be an individual person. Additionally, they said that living people should be eligible in addition to those who are deceased. That was 6 out of, actually 8 of 8 said that yes, living members of the community should be eligible. And finally, they agreed, 7 of 8 agreed that Richmond, they should have some Richmond residency to be honored in this way. Finally, we asked how often the council should consider these. Should it be every month as they're brought forward? Should it be held to be quarterly, semi-annually? There's not a clear consensus, but we do note 3 of the 8 respondents said they should be handled monthly. So in other words, that is as received is another way of putting that. So monthly as they're received. So in conclusion, here's a slide that just reviews everything I just said. There's 4 areas that members generally agreed on about review and limits and DPW and eligibility. There's not a consensus clearly from respondents about who should be responsible for reviewing, how many the limit should be, and then frequency for the council to consider. I hope I haven't been talking so fast. I realize I'm only here at 3 minutes, but here we go. And then finally, my recommendations for your next steps would be broadly that given the depth and gravity of other issues of note for this committee, that we move to a stage where we move to finalize this discussion through. We talked previously about this taking the form of an amendment to the rules of procedure for the council. So, recommend that we move this offline through identifying a member patron, and then for those areas where there aren't consensus, try to basically make a decision and then put it to a vote. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Perkins. And I just want to acknowledge, obviously, that the other members of this committee don't necessarily have the experience with this topic, but I appreciate you carrying on the work of Ms. Davis to give us the results of the survey. And obviously, it's hard to pivot from a discussion of the water response to honorary street signs, but it was something that this committee was charged with trying to clean up and standardize. So if it's the will of the committee, I'm happy to work with Mr. Perkins to try and take this and move it forward, but also welcome any comments or questions. Thank you. Ms. Gibson?
Thank you. Yes, and being new on the committee and on the body, I don't have visibility as to what problem we're trying to solve per se. I would just reading between the lines might assume that we have a couple districts where we're getting a lot of requests. I don't know how much time they take from a functional standpoint. So I'm not sure, what type of resources that it's putting on to have the system the way it is. I do want to make one note in the presentation, and this is a nuance, but it references the number per council member, and I want to acknowledge that every district is different, and we have some districts with with an older community with perhaps more residents that want to see people be recognized. I just don't know that it's fair to suggest that it's a member who's wanting to have so many street names, but rather that this is reflective of the interests and desires of their district. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
And so, again, I don't have visibility to, historically what the challenges have been. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to make recommendations without fully understanding the problem. But whatever the method by which we decide to move forward as a body, I'm completely amenable to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. I'll just say, I think, yes, I think your point about saying that the limit could be per district isn't a synonymous way, but appreciate the concern that this is, the vast majority of these are grassroots efforts to honor members of the community. So thank you for that. And I'll additionally add, I believe it was mentioned last year that each sign roughly DPW developed the estimate about $700 per sign. So, there is a monetary value we've assigned cost to these, and it's about $700 per sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Abubakar?
Actually, Mr. Perkins answered my question, but I had an overall fiscal impact question for DPW in terms of manufacture of signs and then installation.
All right, thank you. Our esteemed Director Vincent, are you walking this way? Would you like to weigh in on this riveting conversation?
Good afternoon, everyone. Bobby Vincent, Director of Public Works. Yeah, the cost of the sign is one thing, but what I would like to see is for there to be a separate budget for the street naming signs. So the individuals that we have, they're used to going out to various intersections and replacing stop signs, street name signs, things of that nature based upon the MUTCD guidelines. When we're installing a street name sign that's dedicated to a family member, they actually become event coordinators. And our equipment operators or our sign installers, they are a lot of things, but event coordinators isn't one of them. So when you're trying to do something to make certain that you make the family members and the esteemed society members that are coming out to celebrate something, I really don't want public works employees to be dependent upon making certain that the sign is revealed properly at the right time on a Saturday with family members standing around crying. It's very cumbersome. And so if that was something that could be turned over to a contractor or a member of council to make certain that just that the ceremony itself was done in accordance to how you all wanted it to be. The making of the sign is negligible in comparison to the amount of signs that we do in fact make, but the event itself is something that can become quite cumbersome for our employees.
Thank you so much, Director Vincent. And yes, your team goes above and beyond every single day. And we had a sign reveal in Jackson Ward, and it would not have been the special occasion that the family was expecting if it hadn't been for your men and women who really did go above and beyond. But that is not really the scope of their role. And they've got so many different needs that they're trying to address across the city. Member Gibson, to your question of like what issue are we trying to solve? It's an overtaxed DPW staff. It's also our own staff, because this isn't really core to our responsibilities. And just trying to find that balance of honoring people in our community, because we do want to honor people in our community. And I make sure to try and say this every time we have this discussion. This is not to say anyone who has been honored previously did not deserve to be honored. It is not about any sign that has already gone up. It's about trying to streamline the process going forward, making sure that these things are done appropriately, that they're budgeted for, and that we have a clear process. So I think we've made some progress to Mr. Perkins' comment. We need to push it across the finish line because we have other really substantive work we got to get to, and we may come back and adjust it again. But let's try and get something that acknowledges the burden is put on DPW staff, acknowledges the desire of the community, and that's clear and understandable.
And one thing that I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, Councilwoman Gibson brought it up about the quantity. And so from a transportation grid standpoint, our traffic engineers and our transportation engineers and planning engineers within Public Works have discussed the fact that it can be confusing to someone coming from a rural area and they make their way to Richmond only to have two different names of a street. They don't realize that a Brown street name is not the actual name of the street. So that's something that we do need to look at when we look at the volume or the quantity of street renamings that go up. And I'm not sure if it's something that we can do like the state does with regards to plaques, and those are typically installed mid-block, and it certainly honors individuals and or sites of occurrences that took place. So I'm not sure if that's something that we can look at as an alternative that we can certainly work on with you all as well.
Yeah, there are a number of ways to honor the very many like worthy people in our community that should be lifted up. Doesn't need to be an honorary street sign.
Yes, ma'am.
Agreed. Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Vincent. So committee, we could take a stab at a recommendation to put forward OD, or I can work with you both offline to get you a little bit more up to date on it, and then we could put forward a proposal to OD. What's the preference? Yes, Vice Chair.
I would say that it would be nice to work offline and get a better articulation of the full scope of this, including as we're thinking about creating a piece of legislation, really articulating the roles of the Department of Public Works versus City Council versus maybe, the Office of External Relations and the city administration. But really, I think knowing we might not get it perfect the first time, but clearly articulating the roles and responsibilities, because it sounds like the manufacturing and installation is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of man hours and therefore substantial cost.
Thank you. Yes. Member Gibson?
Yes, I mean, either approach. I mean, if I would welcome you, perhaps if you wanted to make an initial request or, either way, I trust that.
Okay. Let me put together a recommendation based on what we've just talked about, and then we'll circulate it offline in the appropriate way for our rules. Thank you. All right, moving on to papers for consideration, please. And Mr. Perkins, thank you again. And thank you to Ms. Davis for your prior work.
The paper for consideration is item 1, ordinance 2025-011, to authorize the CAO to execute a right of entry agreement between the city and the Virginia Department of General Services for the purpose of permitting the city access to and use of the parking garage located at 311 North 7th Street to make certain repairs to the city-owned property located at 730 East Broad Street. That paper is for the committee.
Thank you so much. And do we have anyone from administration to give a quick overview of this paper? And then we will open it up to public comment. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Gail Johnson, Interim Director of General Services for the city. We've got a little water when it's heavy rain infiltrating into our 730 building.
I'm so sorry. Can you speak into the
I'm
mic
sorry.
just a little bit slower? Thank you.
Gail Johnson, Interim Director, Department of General Services for the city. When we have heavy rain, we've got low water infiltrating from the outside of the 730 building, and the state's deck is adjoined to that building. So in order to make that repair, we just need access to the top level of that deck so that we can make the repair to the outside wall of the 730 building.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Open it up to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to committee for discussion.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none and no one signed up to speak virtually regarding this item, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Any questions or discussion, committee?
Yeah, I just wanted to, so the building is owned by the city, but it's adjoined to a state building, and we would be essentially paying the state a minimal monthly fee in order to access that for these necessary repairs.
Correct. During the course of the repairs, we just need to be using the top level of the deck.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Committee is voting on the motion to forward ordinance 2025-011 to council with the recommendation to approve. Ms. Gibson? Vice Chair Abubakar?
Yes.
Chair Jordan?
And did we need a second for that motion?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I do need a second.
I will second that.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that was recorded. The vice chair seconded it.
Okay, thank you. And that committee is voting on that motion to forward ordinance 2025-011 to council with the recommendation to approve. Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Abubakar?
Aye.
Chair Jordan?
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you so much. And moving on to board vacancies, please.
Good afternoon, Pamela Nichols, Council Management Analyst. So I am going to review today the board vacancy, which captured current and projected vacancies through May of this year. And starting off with the Audit Committee, there are 2 vacancies for a business community of the city. And we have an application from Kristen Nye and also an application from George Sibley III. We have received recommendation of approval. What we have received is support for these 2 applicants to serve on the Audit Committee.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a motion or any questions or comments, members?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Chair, would you like to do them in a block or do them separately?
I think we'll do them separately because
Okay.
we had a request to
Yes.
continue one of the vacancies. Thanks.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, the committee is voting on the board's recommendation as stated. Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Abubakar?
Aye.
Chair Jordan?
Aye.
That
Thank you.
motion has been approved.
And moving on to the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority, I do apologize, but if the committee look in their packet, I included the application for the Economic Development Authority, even though Mr. Booker did submit an application for both. So if the committee would like to continue it, or you can make that recommendation, and of course I will update it with the. But again, he did submit an application for both of these, for the EDA as well as for Central Virginia Waste Management Authority.
Okay,
And-
so just to make sure I understand, we might want to consider which of those 2 committees is the better fit for the applicant, and then take them at the same time?
No, so for the Central Virginia
Okay.
Waste Management Authority,
Yes.
Taylor Booker submitted an application. And so also, in error, I included in your packet his application for the EDA. So I
Ah.
just did not want any confusion, but he did submit an application for the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority. So if it's desire of the board, then you all can support that. And of course, the records will be updated to reflect the application for Central Virginia Waste Management Authority.
Okay, I understand now. Is there any time sensitivity to this appointment?
No, actually, the current individual who is serving, who has termed out, has definitely expressed his desire to continue to serve as long as he can. So if you would like that, we can just continue with this, and then I could have the correct application before you if you desire.
Okay, and their application for the EDA, did they make it onto the EDA, or was that just an old application?
Yes, they did. That application was considered, and the Finance and Economic Development Standing Committee made its recommendation.
Okay,
Yes.
got it. Well, I would, if we continue it, does that allow other individuals to put forth their names so that if this individual is already on one committee?
Oh, I'm sorry. I do apologize. No, he was not recommended, but he did submit the application.
Okay.
Someone else was recommended by the Finance Committee to serve on the EDA.
Okay, got it. Members, what is your preference?
If there are no other applicants for the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority and Mr. Booker is the sole applicant, if there is no differentiation in the information that he provided for the EDA versus WM, then I would say we could move forward. Motion to move forward.
Second.
The committee is voting on the board's recommendation as stated. Ms. Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Abubakar,
Aye.
Chair Jordan.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Okay, and moving on to the City Personnel Board, you'll notice that we have 2 vacancies for city resident, and we received an application from Stephanie Robertson and Knight Williams.
Any questions, committee? Might I have a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a
Second.
second, please?
A second.
The committee is voting on the board's recommendation as stated. Ms. Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Abubakar,
Aye.
Chair Jordan. That
Aye.
motion. Thank you. That motion has been approved.
And for the Clean City Commission, for a 9th District representative, and Ms. Jones has definitely expressed her support for Ms. Beatrice Bracy.
Okay, thank you. And anyone listening, really, this is such a great commission. I'm sad to see no applications for a couple of these. This group gets out, they do neighborhood cleanups. It's a fantastic way to get to know your neighbors and have a real impact within your neighborhood. So please help spread the word, anyone who's listening to this. But in the interim, let's help get this, at least one position filled. Might I have a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. The committee is voting on the board's recommendation as stated. Ms. Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Abubakar,
Aye.
Chair Jordan.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Okay, and lastly, Sister Cities Commission.
Yes, and this was one that we had a request to continue because there was another applicant that was desirous of submitting, and I'm fine with that. It's okay with the body?
Okay, Madam Chair, if I may, so that then that application be considered during our next quarterly review cycle. We just request that the committee would consider continuing until their April the 23rd meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And does that inhibit there are only 2 vacancies, so I think they're still able to meet because they have 13 members. Okay,
Correct.
great.
And we will have time to also post it on our website, and then we will have a different application deadline.
Okay, thank you so much. Urban Forestry Commission. Anyone listening, the Urban Forestry Commission, we've fought long and hard. I started working on this before I was on council my first term to try and get the Urban Forestry Commission back up and running.
Mhm.
So I hope that administration could bring forward a name
Pardon me,
by our next.
pardon me, Chair Jordan, and
Yes.
if it would be the wish of the committee, I will need a first and second for Sister Cities, please. A
Oh,
motion.
okay. Yes, thank you. Do I have a motion, committee, to forward,
To
I'm sorry, to
continue.
continue the sister cities?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. The committee is voting on the board's recommendation as stated. Ms. Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Abubakar,
Aye.
Chair Jordan.
Aye.
That motion has been approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we don't have anyone to consider for urban forestry, but. Ms.
That is correct, but we are just, the Office of the City Clerk has been working with Mr. Hayes, who has really been working diligently and trying to fill a lot of the mayoral appointments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye.
Okay, we don't have any discussion items. Do we have a staff report?
Members were Will Perkins, Senior Legislative Services Manager. We sent a document to council members in advance of the meeting. I think we can. I'll work with you on if we're calling that a staff report. Is that the right answer to that question? Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Short answer is yes.
All right.
Thank you. I'm sorry. This is my first time. Should I speak now about the report, or I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a staff report? If so, what is it? Can you speak?
Oh, okay. I should deliver the report now. Is that
Thank you.
okay? So thank you, Chair Jordan. The report focused on preparations for the speakers today and the presentations, and agree with that we have heard follow-up requests for some documents related to the vendors we brought on, and ensuring that the Public Utilities Commission is adequately supported, and further follow-up related to street signs.
Thank you. And then I know we wanted to have at a subsequent meeting, or maybe to work offline between now and the next meeting, talk about our goals for this commission, this committee, moving forward for the rest of the year. And we have obviously we have a lot on our plate with the water response, but we also have many other topics that I think deserve our attention and we need to prioritize. I know one of them is public comment, but we will work with you, Mr. Perkins, on finalizing that list of what this body will be tackling. So we're glad to have you aboard. Thank you so much for what you've done already.
Thank you.
And with that, I believe this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.